The air in Manchester is thick with damp and memory. Brick walls sweat in the early morning, and rows of terraced houses lean in on one another, as if they are holding secrets. In the south of the city, where the streets stretch toward Moss Side and Hume, life wakes slowly. Grey sky, wet pavement, the rattle of a delivery truck echoing between buildings. Inside one small house, a child is awake before the city fully stirs. Gary lies still, listening, not to voices but to rhythm. Pipes tick in the walls. Floorboards sigh as someone moves in the kitchen. Somewhere a neighbour's radio bleeds through thin brick, a faint bass line pulsing under the morning air. It is muffled, imperfect, and yet it is steady. Even in silence there is tempo here. The city is already drumming. His mother moves quietly from room to room, holding routines in place, like stitches in fabric. His father prepares for work, the habits of labour etched into every movement. Family fills the home with footsteps, arguments, laughter, life. It is crowded but warm. It is loud but familiar. And within that noise, Gary finds a space of his own. He watches, he absorbs, he listens. Sound does not overwhelm him. It focuses him. Outside, Manchester is iron and rain. Hume's concrete towers loom like tired giants. Moss Side buzzes with activity. Radios spilling reggae, soul, funk from open windows. In Salford, the streets carry the grit of industry and the echoes of a fading era. Buses growl along Princess Parkway. Football chants roll over from distant terraces. The smell of chips, petrol, and wet earth hangs in the air. The city is harsh in places, broken in others, but it is alive. It never stops speaking. He walks these streets as a boy, hands in his pockets, head slightly lowered, but ears open wide. He passes record shops with cloudy windows and faded posters of bands already becoming legend. Faces stare back at him from album covers. The Beatles, The Clash, Funkadelic, reggae kings, soul singers with eyes full of fire. He cannot yet name the future, but he can feel it waiting. Music is everywhere now. At night, distant sound from the city centre drifts through the air like a promise. Somewhere beyond the rows of houses, venues like the Russell Club, Band on the Wall and the Electric Circus hum with movement. People crowd into dark rooms to sweat, to dance, to escape. Punk is fading, but something new stirs beneath it. Darker, groovier, looser, layered with rhythm, borrowed from funk and dub and soul. Gary does not rush toward the stage. He moves instead toward the source of the sound. He is drawn not to the voice, not to the front, not to the flash of lights, but to the foundation. The bass, the pulse, the unseen hand guiding the rest. When wood finally meets his fingers, when string meets skin, something settles inside him. The first note doesn't ring out for attention, but it vibrates. It travels through the floorboards, through his shoes, up into his chest. It doesn't ask who he is, it simply accepts him. The instrument becomes an extension of the city itself, heavy, grounded, essential. He practices in small rooms, in bedrooms, in borrowed spaces that smell of dust and cigarette smoke. Posters peel from the walls, amplifiers buzz with age. Outside, trains clatter past tracks in the distance, punctuating his playing like punctuation marks. He is not rehearsing for fame. He is learning a language his body already understands. Manchester is shaping him quietly. In daytime, he moves past Affleck's Palace, down Market Street, across Piccadilly where crowds blur into motion. There are artists, dreamers, drifters, musicians rehearsing for a life they cannot yet see. There is hunger in the city, but also creativity. The future is forming in basements, in back rooms, in conversations muttered over pints, in dimly lit pubs. Inside record shops, time thickens. Dust floats in the pale light from the window. Fingers flip through sleeves that whisper as they are moved aside. Funk, punk, dub, soul, post-punk. Sounds that feel like continents, stacked side by side. Sleeve art stares back at him. Defiance, dread, colour, chaos, poetry. He listens carefully now. He listens with intent. The bass lines don't just support the music. They decide it. They guide the body. They take control of the room. He carries that knowledge with him into small rehearsal spaces spread around the city. In damp basements, in rented rooms above shops, in the backs of community halls that smell of wood polish and old smoke. Amplifiers hum constantly, plugged into sockets that feel barely alive. Drum kits are scarred from overuse. The walls are thin, and through them comes the sound of other bands searching for themselves, each note colliding with another, forming a chaos that somehow feels sacred. Here, the future is being assembled without anyone noticing. He finds his way into the Paris Angels, stepping into a scene already vibrating with tension and ambition. The music is urgent, layered with attitude, sharpened by the streets that feed it. Guitars wail, drums pummel the air, but it is the bass that anchors it all. His bass. His calm, his weight. He stands slightly to the side, slightly in shadow, letting the music speak louder than words ever could. The crowds are small, the rooms are crowded, bodies press close, sweat coats the air, and lights burn yellow above heads that sway as one. Here and there, faces begin to look familiar, people who will matter later, people who feel the same pull, creators of a new sound that does not yet have a name. In the background, the hacienda starts to awaken. Factory Records is whispering through the underground. Electronic beats mix with acid, funk folds into rock, and something undefinable begins to take hold of the city. Manchester is becoming its own instrument. Every street, every club, every abandoned warehouse contributes a note. At night, he walks home as the city exhales. Reflections stretch into the canals. Neon from distant signs trembles in the water. The thump of distant music lingers in the chest long after the venues close. He feels connected not to a band, not to a movement, but to a feeling. A low, constant hum that tells him he is exactly where he is meant to be. He is no longer just learning how to play. He is learning who he is. Each rehearsal sharpens him. Each performance strengthens him. His fingers move more instinctively now, sliding along the strings as though guided by memory older than his own. He begins to understand silence as deeply as sound, when to bring the music down, when to let it rise, when to simply hold it together and let others fly above. Outside the venues, the city is changing. Fashion shifts, hair grows wilder, clothes grow looser, confidence grows louder. Manchester is preparing itself without knowing for an eruption, for a cultural moment that will carry its name around the world. And somewhere within that dormant energy, a new alignment is forming. A guitarist with vision, a drummer with primal rhythm, a singer with mystery. They are moving unknowingly toward the same point in time as he is. He is still just Gary Mounfield, walking home through the Manchester night, bass on his back, hands in his pockets, head full of sound. But the ground under his feet is beginning to tremble, just enough to know a storm is coming. The music of the early 80s feels hollow, polished, predictable. Synths hum where heart should beat, image overpowers sound, and charts dominate more than feeling. London glitters, of course. Its clubs and studios full of money and style, but up here in Manchester, it feels distant, irrelevant. The city has its own rhythm, and it is impatient. Inside back rooms, garages, and small rehearsal spaces, something different is stirring. Kids with guitars, drums, and voices that refuse to settle are searching for something real. Gary steps into these rooms, bass in hand, listening, feeling, measuring. He does not rush, he absorbs. Every scratch of guitar, every drum fill, every slurred lyric is a puzzle he is learning to complete. They play again and again, late into nights, where the streets outside are quiet but the rooms are electric. Each member is learning the other's moves, instincts beginning to lock into place. The sound is raw but coherent, just pure, energy waiting to find form. He feels it in his chest when it clicks. This is more than a band. This is something alive, something bigger than themselves. Each rehearsal fans the spark, ignites it further. They stumble, laugh, argue, restart. And each time the sound grows tighter, more magnetic. The chaos becomes structure. The energy becomes rhythm. The rhythm becomes something contagious. The city hums outside the walls, indifferent to what is forming inside. But inside, a fire is lit. Not flashy, not loud, just undeniable. They do not yet know they are on the edge of creating something new, a sound that will carry Manchester's heartbeat across the world. They only know that when they play, everything else falls away, and they are alive in a way nothing else gives them. Gary's bass anchors it all, steady, unshakable. It does not seek attention. It supports, it drives. It binds the other's energy into something that works. And in that, he begins to understand his role. Not the front, not the spotlight, but the foundation, the pulse. Without him, the spark would burn out. With him, it can catch the air and grow. Out of these small rooms and small towns far from London's glitter, a new sound is emerging. It is unpredictable, raw, full of attitude, and it is theirs. A spark has been lit, and nothing can extinguish it. They are ready, finally, to build the bonfire from the ashes of what music has been. And in that moment, Gary feels the future pulse beneath his fingers, steady, alive, and waiting for the world to notice. But the spark that lit the band so brightly is now tested. The Roses have fought a long, exhausting battle with their first label. Silvertone. Contracts are broken. Lawsuits are settled. Freedom comes at last, but it's heavy. They sign with Geffen Records. A new opportunity tinged with expectation and pressure. The path is clear. Finally, the road ahead is anything but smooth. They retreat to Rockfield Studios in Wales to record what will become Second Coming. Days stretch into weeks, weeks into months. Producers leave, engineers arrive, and John Leckie, who shaped their first album, steps away. Gary watches as arguments flare over music, over direction, over control. Tension threads through every chord, every drum fill, every vocal line. They chase something alive, something real, something that can capture the heartbeat of the North, and the process frays the edges of their unity. Inside the studio, every note is a negotiation. Songs are slowed, replayed, rearranged. The band experiments, they stumble, they restart. The original energy that once felt effortless now demands everything: patience, focus, and a will to survive both the music and the relationships within it. Gary's bass holds steady, grounding the chaos even as frustration spreads like wildfire. Outside the studio, the business side whispers at the edges. Promises of creative freedom and control have been won in court, but lingering questions about money, rights, and vision weigh on every decision. The band vents their anger in symbolic acts, paint splashed across old management offices, a rebellion rendered in colour, a statement of autonomy, frustration, and defiance. It is their way of reclaiming space in a world that has tried to confine them. Finally, Second Coming is released in December 1994. The sound is darker, heavier, sprawling. Guitar solos stretch out like questions. Basslines rumble deep, and grooves are raw and unapologetic. The record is a testament to the band's ambition, but also a reflection of the cost, creative tension, long delays, and internal strain. The magic of the first album is no longer easy. It has become something earned, hard-won, and complex. And for Gary, the bass remains his anchor. It carries the rhythm, holds the pulse, and steadies the music, even as personal relationships fray. The band that once felt unstoppable now moves with care, weighed down by years of expectation and months of painstaking recording. Yet within the chaos, the fire is not gone. The northern youth still believe, still gather, still feel the heartbeat of the music beneath their feet. The roses are alive, still making sound that matters, but the cracks are visible. The unity that built the bonfire is fragile, stretched thin by the demands of art, business, and ambition. And Gary knows that every note he plays now carries not just rhythm, but the weight of a dream that is both brilliant and on the edge of breaking. Manny steps into a new world. The Stone Roses have split, but his journey is far from over. In 1996, he joins Primal Scream, bringing his bass into their swirling soundscapes, Vanishing Point, Evil Heat, Riot City Blues, Beautiful Future. On stage, his presence is magnetic. He anchors the chaos, bridging old and new. Audiences respond. The connection between player and listener is immediate, visceral. The pull of the Stone Roses never fades. In 2011, Manny rejoins the band. Reunited, the fans roar. Stadiums chant every lyric. I want to be adored. She bangs the drums. I am the resurrection. The songs become collective memory, pulse of a generation. Manny feels gratitude, awe, and joy. Then comes the news that silences everything. On the 20th of November 2025, Gary Mounfield dies, aged 63. His brother Greg announces the loss. Tributes flood in. Ian Brown writes, "Rest in peace, Manny." Liam Gallagher calls him my hero. Musicians, fans, friends, all mourn the heartbeat that held so many songs together. But the legacy is clear. His bass lines, his quiet strength, his generosity. They live on in everyone who danced, who listened, who felt the groove. Manny is still here, in every note, every pulse, every rhythm. He played for the future, and the world noticed.